This is CineBack version 2 for the Fujifilm X-H2s, X-H2, X-T4, and X-T5, with more cameras on the way. It is a cinema device that goes on the back of your camera, gives you several different features, including a V-mount or gold mount battery plate, a power switch to send that power to dual USB-C outputs, including 4 D-Tap outputs, and a plate that is removable and works with the fan module for Fujifilm cameras. All of your buttons and dials are accessible. There's cable management, as you see here, for this monitor and rig setup I have going right now. And there's a place for your camera screen. You can use it in a flip out, flip in, multiple different orientations there. There are giant cheese plates on the top and bottom, letting you mount really anything and build the perfect custom rig for you. And it works with our quick release module if you want to be able to quickly remove your camera from the rig. And in this video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know about setting your camera up with CineBack, all of the different features. So let's go ahead and get started. When it comes to power, there are multiple outputs. So first you need to choose a battery plate style. Right now I'm using V-mount, but there's also gold mount available. Then the power switch is just below the USB-C connections, as you can see here. And when you flip the switch, it sends power to both of the USB-C jacks as well as the 4 D-Tap connectors here. When you turn the switch off, there is 0 power traveling through the rig. So you don't have to worry about this battery being drawn from. It is completely disconnected from CineBack. So you can actually take this entire rig, set it into a bag, and you don't have to worry about your power being pulled from your battery. And of course, when we turn it back on, it's going to send power to all of our connections, 2 of which are these USB-C jacks. These are capable of power delivery, so they can do 5 volts, 9 volts, etc., up to 12 volts, and we'll be able to power cameras like this Fuji X-H2s. So you can see the little battery connector down here is working. So that's one way you can use it, is to power the camera. You can also do other cool stuff, like use our new 12 volt power delivery cables. So this upper cable here is actually going into the cable management. It's 1 meter long. I have it coiled up in there. And then it's coming out through this top hole and going to this monitor. So I can actually power up this Ninja 5 monitor, and it's going to be powered from USB-C power delivery. And that leaves all 4 of our D-Tap connectors open for other gear. So there we have the monitor working just like that. These 4 D-Tap connectors are 14.8 volts coming directly from your battery. So you can use all kinds of different cables to power other devices, and it's reversible. So if the cables are coming out that direction and you want them to come out that direction, you simply remove these 4 screws, gently pull this module up, and then rotate it 180 degrees and put it back in with those same 4 screws, and you're good to go. CineBack is also compatible with the Fujifilm fan that attaches to the back of the camera. So you can choose to use that or omit it, and you'll have more room for cables behind the camera. We also sell USB-C right angle to right angle cables on the store, and these are perfect for running power to your camera, and they're just long enough to work with CineBack. So I'll feed this cable all the way through, open up the USB-C door here. I'll go ahead and plug it in, and you can see how compact and tidy this setup is with CineBack. And we still have a USB-C here, as well as our 4 D-Tap connections. Now let's install the X-H2s or X-H2 with the Tilta cage in CineBack. First, decide if you're going to install the fan, and if so, go ahead and do that before inserting the camera into CineBack. Then, without any spacers, you can go ahead and slide the entire cage and camera combination into CineBack. And if you feel like you need to slightly lift this top plate to get it to fit, that is completely fine. At this point, we can install 2 screws at the top and 1 at the bottom. Using the screw length finder, grab 3 3/8 screws. And once installed, you can go ahead and close the screen of the camera into CineBack, and you're ready to go out and film using the Tilta cage. Now let's talk about installing the camera and the SmallRig cage into CineBack. Go ahead and grab the smaller, thinner 7mm spacer from the kit. We're going to install it on the underside of the top plate right here. Here's what it looks like installed. Make sure you choose whether or not you're going to use the Fujifilm fan, and if you are, install it before you install the camera into CineBack. And now we can go ahead and set CineBack down, pick up our camera, flip out the screen, and we'll go ahead and install it in CineBack. And if you feel like you need to lift up this top plate a little bit to get the camera in, that is perfectly fine and normal. Now we can go ahead and install 2 screws on the top and 1 on the bottom. Use the included screw length finder to grab 2 5/8 screws for the top and 1 3/8 screw for the bottom. Finally, close the camera screen, and now we have CineBack set up. If you feel you need to work on the alignment of the display, simply loosen the bottom screw, slide it forward and back until everything is nice and parallel. And that is how you get this camera cage and camera setup installed with CineBack. Now let's go ahead and install the camera with the 8-cin cage into CineBack. First, we're going to need 2 7mm spacers, the larger bottom spacer and the smaller upper spacer. Use 5 of the small silver screws for the bottom and 3 for the top. Also install 1 1/4 to 3/8 thread adapter in this hole on the bottom of the cage. Make sure you choose whether or not you're going to use the Fujifilm fan, and if you are, install it before you install the camera into CineBack. Next, using the screw length finder, find 3 5/8 screws that come with the kit, and then we're ready to install the camera and the cage into CineBack. Start by flipping the camera screen out, and because the camera actually sits higher than the cage itself, instead of inserting the camera directly in from the front, we need to insert it from the side. So go ahead and line it up and slightly lift the front of CineBack if you need to get the camera installed. Stick it back and locate the threads that you want to install at the top of the cage. We will use 2 screws on the top and 1 on the bottom. From there we can close the camera screen, and now we have this camera and cage combination installed with CineBack. Now let's talk about installing the X-H2s with the wooden camera cage into CineBack. First, locate the 5mm bottom spacer, which looks like this. Use 5 of the small silver screws to install it on the bottom inside of CineBack. Once done, it will look like this down here with those 3 slots matching the bottom of the cheese plate. Next, you can install 2 of the 1/4 to 3/8 thread on the front, left, and right threads on the top of the cage. Make sure you choose whether or not you're going to use the Fujifilm fan, and if you are, install it before you install the camera into CineBack. Now we can open up the camera screen, and we can go ahead and install the camera cage into CineBack. Now if you feel like you need to lift up the front top plate of CineBack to get the camera in, that is completely fine and normal. And also if you feel like there's too much play and too much gap in between the camera cage and CineBack, you can add one of these 1mm spacers to that spacer we had before. So just stick this in between the CineBack plate and the spacer to shim it up by 1mm. Now we can line up the top of the cage with this top slot here, and as you can see, there are several different positions that you can go ahead and line up, and if you use those 2 small 1/4 to 3/8 thread adapters, you'll be able to snug the camera up pretty far backward into CineBack. Next, using the screw length finder, grab 2 to 3 3/8 screws and install the cage and camera into the top of CineBack. Then you can flip CineBack over and install the final screw right here, in this case a 1/2 inch screw. And with that done, we now have the camera and cage installed into CineBack. Now let's talk about installing the X-T4 with the SmallRig cage into CineBack. Start by installing the cage, then take CineBack and you're going to look for the 10mm upper spacer, which looks like this. It's narrow and it's going to take 3 of the included silver screws, and you can install it as you see here with the slots lining up with the top slots of the cheese plate on the top of CineBack. Next, take the camera and flip open the screen, and we're going to install it into CineBack. If you feel like you need to lift this top plate a little bit to get the camera in, that is perfectly fine and normal. From there, we can align the threads of the camera cage with these top 2 slots of CineBack, and using our screw length finder, we're going to grab 2 5/8 screws and 1 3/8 screw. for the bottom. With those screws installed, we can close the screen into CineBack, and now we have the X-T4 installed with a SmallRig cage. If you have the Fujifilm X-T5 with the SmallRig cage, assembly is going to be identical. Just know that since this camera does not have a flip out screen, you cannot place it in the screen holder on the side here, and your screen will need to be kind of trapped between the camera and CineBack. There's a little bit of room there to reach in and tap the screen if you need to, and you can remove the vanity plate here to have a little more access as well. And you'll just need to set the camera's HDMI info display on so that all of your information can go to an external monitor. But it does fit using the exact same installation as the X-T4, the only difference being the screen can't go here in the screen holder. So that is how to get CineBack set up with your Fuji camera. Check the product link for more descriptions. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys in our next video.